Civilizations don't fall the way we imagine. Not always with armies, not always with rebellion. Sometimes, the world ends quietly. There are moments in history when the land itself turned against the people who depended on it. Moments when the skies changed, the rains vanished, and entire empires found themselves standing on foundations that were suddenly brutally pulled away. This is the story of those civilizations. The ones undone not by war, but by the climate. Around 4,300 years ago, in the land between the Tigris and Euphrates, humanity built something remarkable. The Akkadian Empire, history's first true empire, organized, ambitious, powerful, fed by rivers that had never failed them. They believed those waters were eternal, and why wouldn't they? For generations, the rivers rose and fell with predictable rhythm. Their world felt stable, permanent. But then, something changed. The rain stopped. Not for a season, not for a year, but for centuries. The empire's strength became its weakness. Cities grew crowded. Food ran short. Order broke down. We call it the 4.2 kiloyear event, one of the most severe droughts in human history. What began as a climate shift became a social collapse, and the first great empire fractured fast. The Indus Valley civilization was different. They weren't obsessed with kings or monuments. They built order, cleanliness, stability. They lived in harmony with the monsoons that watered their fields. But climate shift slowly, quietly. And that can be even more dangerous. This wasn't collapse. It was erosion. A civilization fading not in fire but in silence. They didn't vanish. They adapted. They broke apart their large cities and rebuilt their lives in smaller rural communities. Sometimes survival isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's a quiet decision to walk away before it's too late. For nearly 3,000 years, Egypt survived everything: wars, invasions, chaos. But there was one thing Egypt could never survive without: the Nile flood. The Nile was the empire's heartbeat. Every year it rose, dropped silt, and fed millions. But around 2200 BCE, the floods weakened. Then they failed, one after another. This period is known as the First Intermediate Period, a time of famine, civil unrest, and political fragmentation. Egypt didn't collapse because of an enemy. Egypt collapsed because the river it depended on stopped showing up. Climate can overthrow a king without lifting a single sword. The Maya built their world in a land of extremes. Dry seasons, wet seasons. They mastered both. They built reservoirs deeper than modern swimming pools. They studied the stars. They predicted rains with remarkable accuracy. But nothing prepares a society for a megadrought. From the 8th to the 10th centuries, the rains failed repeatedly. Their water systems, once brilliant, couldn't keep up. The chain reaction was swift. No water gives no crops, gives no authority, gives no cities. The Maya didn't disappear. They reorganized, just like the Indus people. But their great cities became empty stone skeletons in the jungle. The Ancestral Puebloans built impossible homes on cliffs, surviving in one of the driest environments in North America. They knew hardship. They adapted for centuries. But around 1275, a final devastating drought arrived. A drought so severe that even the highest cliff cities couldn't escape it. So they made a courageous choice, one of the largest migrations in ancient North American history. It wasn't collapse. It was a deliberate move toward survival. In ancient China, climate shifts didn't just destroy crops, they toppled dynasties. The monsoon system that fed China is one of the most powerful forces on Earth. When it shifted, floods and famines followed. In China, climate disasters weren't rare. They were a cycle. Each shift tested the strength of the dynasty, and the weak ones fell. When you look across the ancient world, a pattern emerges. Civilizations rose during stable climates, and fell when that stability cracked. It didn't matter if they had armies. It didn't matter if they had kings. Climate was the one enemy no civilization could ignore. But there's more. These collapses weren't isolated events. They were a linked part of a global pattern that shaped the world we inherited. In Part 2, we dive into the science behind these climate shifts and how close we came to losing human civilization more than once. To understand how these civilizations fell, we must first understand the forces at work. The Earth's climate is not static. It fluctuates over decades, centuries, and millennia. Sometimes slowly, sometimes violently. And when it shifts abruptly, human societies often cannot keep up. Take the 4.2 kiloyear event in Mesopotamia. It wasn't a simple drought. It was a prolonged, severe shift in rainfall, linked to changes in ocean temperatures, monsoon intensity, and atmospheric patterns. The rains that had sustained the Akkadian Empire for generations simply disappeared. Meanwhile, in the Indus Valley, weakening monsoons slowly turned fertile plains into desert margins. Crops failed gradually, forcing populations to disperse. Cities emptied silently. The Maya faced similar megadroughts, intensified by the El Niño Southern Oscillation. Reservoirs that had once sustained great populations failed year after year. The Ancestral Puebloans confronted aridification in the American Southwest, part of a global pattern of droughts that stretched across continents. These were not local anomalies. They were signs of an Earth system in flux. What all these societies had in common was vulnerability. They were sophisticated, but heavily dependent on predictable water systems, crops, and trade networks. And when these systems faltered, social cohesion broke apart. Centralized governments' empires built on control were often the first to crumble. When resources failed, bureaucracy collapsed and power vacuums erupted. Famine followed by migration, followed by unrest. Decentralized, flexible systems, by contrast, often survived. The Indus Valley people adapted. The Maya dispersed. The Ancestral Puebloans migrated. Adaptation, not brute force, became the difference between survival and extinction. The cost of these climate shifts was immense. Millions went hungry. Famine became routine. Social inequality worsened as elites hoarded food, while ordinary people perished or fled. The psychological toll was just as severe. Religious systems were challenged. Priests could no longer predict the skies. Kings could not guarantee survival. Faith faltered. Authority collapsed. Chaos spread. In short, the climate exposed the fragility of human civilization. It revealed just how dependent we were on systems we thought eternal. Survival wasn't always about fighting the climate. Sometimes it meant moving. The Ancestral Puebloans packed up and walked hundreds of miles to new water sources. The Indus Valley people decentralized, abandoning cities for smaller, more manageable settlements. The Maya dispersed, spreading risk across landscapes. Adaptation often required difficult choices, abandoning sacred sites, leaving ancestral homes, and accepting uncertainty. It demanded courage, planning, resilience. Yet, in many cases, these choices preserved culture, knowledge, and the human spirit, even when empires themselves vanished. The ancient world may seem distant, but the lessons remain urgent. Human civilization today is far more interconnected and far more dependent on stable systems. Water scarcity, crop failures, and extreme weather events still threaten societies across the globe. Lesson 1. Centralized systems are vulnerable. Lesson 2. Flexibility and local resilience save lives. Lesson 3. Understanding climate patterns is not optional, it is survival. Even today, we see echoes of the past. When rainfall fails, populations migrate. When rivers dry, social tension rises. When food systems collapse, governments face unrest. But unlike the ancients, we have knowledge, technology, and global networks to respond. Yet knowledge is only useful if acted upon. History reminds us, preparation is not optional. Across continents and millennia, a pattern emerges. Stable climates produce flourishing civilizations. Rapid shifts produce chaos, migration, famine, and collapse. The story repeats. Mesopotamia, Indus, Egypt, Maya, China, Ancestral Puebloans. Different continents, different cultures. One universal force, climate. This is not coincidence. It is a warning. Earth's climate is a powerful, impartial arbiter of human fate. And yet, even in collapse, humans adapt. Civilizations may fall, but knowledge survives. Culture persists. People migrate, innovate, and endure. Our ancestors' responses to climate stress show both our vulnerability and our resilience. This is only the beginning. In Part 3, we will dive deeper into the most extreme climate events in history, where entire continents were reshaped. And we'll explore how these shifts influenced the rise and fall of empires, warfare, culture, and technology. The stakes were high, and the consequences were absolute. The Earth's climate is impartial, and history is its witness. Ready to uncover the next truth? Subscribe to HistoriaForge and tell me, what empire do we analyze next? Comment below.